What happens when I follow the rules exactly and let my boss realize he can't run his business without me? Back in high school, I went to a vocational tech school for auto mechanics. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to work with engines. After graduation, I got a job as a mechanic. The work itself wasn't bad, but I hated being stuck in the shop. The only part of the day I looked forward to was the test drives. That's when it hit me. Maybe I didn't want to be a mechanic. Maybe I wanted to drive. So I chased that dream. By the time I was 20, I had a job as a truck driver. The company I worked for had 2 delivery trucks, and I was driver number 2. I loved the open road, the independence. For a while, everything was perfect. Back then, Pennsylvania had a different licensing system. A Class 1 license let you drive 18-wheelers. Class 2 was for heavy trucks over 30,000 pounds. Class 3 was just regular passenger vehicles. The trucks I drove were originally rated at Class 3 because they didn't have air brakes and weighed in at 28,000 pounds. That meant the company could hire drivers like me for cheaper. But then the federal government stepped in. Pennsylvania switched to the new commercial driver's license, CDL system. Class A was for tractor-trailers, Class B was for other large trucks over 27,000 pounds, and Class C covered passenger vehicles. Suddenly, the trucks I drove no longer qualified as Class 3. They were reclassified as Class B, meaning I needed a CDL to keep driving them. The state gave us 3 months to get the new license. If you didn't have it by the deadline, you were off the road. That's where the conflict started. The company's part owner, Fred, was, let's just say, not my biggest fan. From the moment he bought into the company, he didn't like me. Never smiled at me, never made small talk. Always assumed I was doing something wrong. The other manager, John, got along with me fine, but Fred? He barely tolerated me. One day, John asked casually, "Hey, are you gonna get your CDL?" I shrugged. "I don't know. Is the company going to pay for it?" He hesitated. "I'll ask Fred." Weeks passed with no answer. Then one afternoon, Fred cornered me. "You getting your CDL?" he demanded. "Are you paying for it?" I asked. "No." "Then no," I said simply. He blinked, not expecting that answer. "What are you going to do for work then?" I looked him dead in the eye. This isn't the only job out there. What he didn't realize was that in just 2 weeks, the company wouldn't be able to deliver product unless they had a CDL driver. I was the only one. Without me, they'd lose 85% of their business overnight. Malicious compliance time. 2 weeks before the deadline, John pulled me aside. "Listen, on Saturday, take the company pickup to Harrisburg and get your permit. We'll pay for your time." Here's the twist. I had already learned about a loophole. If you've been driving the same trucks for 3 years, you could get a waiver for the driving test portion. All I needed was an affidavit signed by the company owner confirming I'd been driving there that long. That meant no borrowing a truck, no begging another CDL driver to let me test in theirs. Just a permit, then the written test. I didn't tell Fred that. Instead, I went to the other owner, the one who actually liked me, and got him to sign the affidavit. Saturday rolled around. I woke up at 4 a.m. and drove to Harrisburg. When I arrived, the line for the DMV wrapped around the block. By the time the doors opened, I was at least 500th in line. 2.5 hours later, I walked out with my permit in hand. Next came the written test. To get a CDL, you had to pass the general knowledge exam, the air brakes test, and any endorsements you wanted. Tanker, passenger, doubles, triples, hazmat, you could stack them all. I was only required to take 2 tests, but since I was there, I thought, why not? I took every test except hazmat. By the time I walked out, my lowest score was an 87. That Thursday, my office called. "We found a testing site that has an opening in 1 hour. Get there now, or you'll miss your chance." The problem? I was an hour and a half away. I floored it, bent a few traffic laws, and slid into the testing site just as they were closing the doors. I took the test, passed, and by Saturday, I was back in Harrisburg at 3:00 a.m., this time 300th in line. 2 hours later, I walked out with my shiny new CDL. The company had no choice but to give me a raise. For the next year, I drove their trucks with a license they had refused to pay for. And when I eventually left, that CDL kept opening doors for me. Even when I moved back into diesel mechanic work, the license bumped me to the front of the line and boosted my salary. Fred never said a word about it, but I'll never forget the look on his face when he realized I had him cornered. He thought he could save a few bucks by refusing to pay for my license. Instead, he ended up paying me more and relying on me completely. All because I followed the rules to the letter and let the clock run out on his stubbornness. Should I stay in this situation if I'm crushing on a married man I barely know? I never thought I would find myself in this position. I am 30 years old, and for the past year, I have been experiencing feelings I can hardly admit to anyone. Every afternoon at school pickup, I see him. A married man. A father. Someone I have never even spoken to. And yet, I feel drawn to him in a way I cannot explain. It started innocently enough. I first noticed him while waiting for the kids to come out of school. He stood across the lot, looking relaxed, maybe tired after a long day, but always present. Our eyes met once, and something about that moment stuck with me. Since then, it has been almost routine. He looks over. I look back. And that's all. No conversations. No exchanged words. Just glances. But those glances have grown into something more for me. I find myself thinking about him long after I leave the school, wondering about his life, wondering if he feels the same pull that I do. Sometimes I tell myself it is all in my head, that he is probably just looking around, not at me specifically. But deep down I sense something. A connection, however fragile, however unspoken. And that scares me, because I do not want to be that person. I do not want to cross boundaries to insert myself into a marriage to ruin lives. I know he has a family. I know he has someone waiting at home. The last thing I want is to become a cliché, the other woman, destroying a family over an infatuation. Yet I cannot deny the feelings. They hit me every time I see him. My heart beats faster. I wonder what his voice sounds like. I imagine conversations that never happen. It feels ridiculous. How can I feel such a strong attraction to someone I have never spoken to? And yet, it is real. I try to rationalize it. Maybe I am just lonely. Maybe I am projecting qualities onto him that I crave in my own life. Maybe he represents something I feel is missing: stability, warmth, or even just attention. After all, a crush is often more about the fantasy than the person themselves. Still, knowing all that does not make it easier. Every day I battle with myself. Part of me wants to ignore it, to brush it off, to treat it as nothing more than a fleeting attraction. Another part of me craves more. I catch myself daydreaming about small interactions. What if we struck up a conversation? What if we laughed at the same joke? What if just what I felt something too? But then reality crashes down. He wears a wedding ring. He has kids. He is not available, and I should not even want him to be. The guilt eats at me. Even though I have not acted on anything, even though I have not said a single word to him, I still feel like I am doing something wrong just by entertaining these thoughts. I feel ashamed of myself, like I am betraying my own morals. And yet the feelings remain. Sometimes I wonder if others have gone through this. If other people have developed crushes on someone off limits and managed to overcome it, do they just fade with time? Or do they linger, tempting you endlessly? I do not want this crush to define me. I do not want to risk my integrity or anyone else's happiness. What I want is to move forward, to shake this off, to focus on my own life. But right now, every time I see him at school pickup, it feels impossible. I remind myself constantly, attraction is not a choice, but action is. I cannot control that my heart skips when I see him, but I can control what I do with those feelings. And I refuse to let them lead me down a path I will regret. For now, all I can do is hold the line. Keep the boundaries. Accept that sometimes we feel things we wish we didn't, and the strength lies in not acting on them. Am I overreacting because of what my boyfriend said about his late fiancé? I have been dating my boyfriend for just 2 months. Things are still new, still fragile, but I like him a lot. There is something about the way he looks at me, the way he makes me feel special, that drew me in right away. But there is also something heavy in his past that has been hanging over us from the start. 2 years ago, he lost his fiancée. She was killed in a tragic accident the very same day he proposed. She was hit by a car, and his world shattered. When we first started talking, he told me he was over it and ready to move on. He admitted he would always carry her memory, but he said he had healed enough to open his heart again. I believed him, and I decided to give the relationship a chance. I never wanted to compete with her memory. I respected what they had. But lately, I've been struggling with feelings I never expected. He sometimes makes jokes about her passing. First I was shocked, but then I realized it was his way of coping. He even told me once, if I didn't joke, I'd drown. I tried to be understanding. Grief looks different for everyone. But then last week something happened that I can't shake. He had been drinking more than usual. We were sitting together, the TV humming in the background, when he slurred out words that are now stuck in my head. I wish I could have you both if I was dead or after death. First, I wasn't even sure I heard him right. But then he repeated it, softer this time, as though confessing a secret. My chest tightened. I didn't respond in the moment. I didn't know how. He passed out not long after, but the words kept echoing in my mind. Since then, I've been spiraling. I can't stop picturing what he meant. Did he mean that if he were dead, he could be with both of us? That in the afterlife he wants her and me? It makes me feel like I am sharing him with someone who is no longer here. I know grief doesn't vanish, and I don't expect him to erase her from his heart. But I hate the feeling that if he had to choose, he would choose her. That thought tears me apart. It makes me jealous of someone who is gone, and I hate myself for feeling that way. It feels selfish to compete with a memory, but at the same time I want to feel like I am his first choice, his present, his future. I haven't brought it up yet because I don't want to make him feel guilty for grieving. He has already been through something unimaginably painful. The last thing I want is to add shame to his grief. But I also can't keep pretending I'm okay. His words hurt me. They made me feel invisible, like a placeholder rather than a partner. Part of me wonders if it's just too soon for him. Maybe 2 years isn't enough to move on from a love that ended so suddenly. Maybe I rushed into this, believing he was ready when he wasn't. I don't know if I'm equipped to handle the ghost of someone else in our relationship. And yet I care about him. He makes me laugh. He makes me feel wanted. When he's sober and present, he talks about plans for us, vacations, dinners, little daydreams about the future. Those moments feel real. They make me think we could work. But then his drunk words play in my mind and I feel hollow. I've been asking myself questions non-stop. Is it normal for someone to still say things like that 2 years after losing a fiancé? Am I cruel for wanting him to myself? Is it selfish to want to be his only focus, when part of his heart will always belong to her? I'm torn between compassion and self-preservation. On one hand, I know grief is messy. On the other, I need to feel secure in a relationship. I don't want to spend years wondering if I'm second best to a memory. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe it was just drunk rambling and doesn't reflect how he truly feels. But maybe it does. And if it does, what does that mean for me? Do I stay and accept that I will always be sharing him with her ghost? Or do I walk away now before I sink deeper into something that could break me later? I don't want to attack him, and I don't want to disrespect her memory. I just want to know if my feelings are valid. Am I overreacting for being hurt by what he said? Or am I right to question whether he is truly ready for a new relationship? Am I the asshole for eating pizza rolls which supposedly caused my wife to lose trust in me? I am a man in my 30s, married, and honestly I never thought I would be here writing about something as silly as pizza rolls. But somehow what started as a small snack has turned into a bigger issue about trust in my marriage, and I cannot figure out if I was wrong or if my wife overreacted. A few weeks ago, my wife had plans to go out one evening for a girls' night. That left me at home with the dogs, and I was actually looking forward to having a quiet night to myself. While grocery shopping earlier that week, I spotted a bag of pizza rolls in the frozen food section. I had not had them in decades and I felt nostalgic. My wife usually does not like junk food, and I typically cook meals from scratch throughout the week, so this felt like a fun little treat just for me. I grabbed the bag and tucked it into the downstairs freezer since our kitchen freezer is usually packed. When the night came, I baked some of the pizza rolls, enjoyed them with my dogs, and had my own little guy's night. It was nothing dramatic, just me relaxing with some junk food while my wife was out with her friends. I only ate half the bag and left the rest in the freezer. Fast forward to yesterday. I got home from work early and had skipped lunch, so I was really hungry. I remembered the pizza rolls in the freezer, heated them up and ate the rest. By the time my wife came home, I had tossed the empty bag in the garbage. That is when things went sideways. She saw the empty bag in the trash and acted shocked, almost like she had caught me doing something wrong. She asked why I had pizza rolls where I was hiding them and why I had not told her. First, I thought she was joking. I laughed it off, even played along a little, and told her I was hiding them in the downstairs freezer. Out in the open, the ultimate hiding place. I thought we were being playful, but she was not joking. She became serious, saying I was sneaky and asking why I had hidden the food from her. Then, out of nowhere, she escalated the conversation by bringing up my past issues with alcohol. Years ago, I struggled with drinking, but I have been doing much better for a long time. Still, she told me this situation with the pizza rolls was exactly why she has trust issues with me. At that point, I stopped laughing. I was completely thrown off. How could frozen snacks be connected to trust and alcohol? I told her she was being ridiculous, but she did not back down. She said I should have told her I bought them, that I should not have kept them in the downstairs freezer, and that she now felt like I was sneaky in other areas too. We ended up in a tense argument. I insisted it was just a bag of pizza rolls, nothing more. She insisted it was about honesty and trust. Eventually, we went out for groceries together and carried on with the evening like nothing had happened. But I was left feeling shaken. I cannot stop thinking about it. In my mind, it was an innocent purchase, something small and nostalgic, not something that required disclosure. I did not hide them. I put them in the downstairs freezer because that is where there was space. I did not lie. I did not sneak around. I simply ate some frozen food. But in her mind, it symbolized something bigger, something connected to my past struggles. And now I feel like she has lumped me into the same category as if I were lying about drinking again, which is painful. I know relationships are about trust and communication, but I also feel like this was blown out of proportion. Do I really need to announce every little snack I buy? Do I have to tell her every detail of what I eat, where I store it, and when I plan to have it? To me, that feels exhausting and unnecessary. At the same time, I do not want to dismiss her feelings if she truly sees this as a trust issue. I love her, and I want her to feel secure with me, but I also feel like she projected unrelated fears onto something harmless. So now I am sitting here wondering, was I really the asshole for buying and eating pizza rolls without telling my wife? Did I betray her trust? Or is this an overreaction tied more to her insecurities than my actions? Am I the asshole for reminding my older sisters that they're the reason I don't spend time at home? I'm a 15-year-old girl, and I have two older sisters, one who is 18 and the other 26. For as long as I can remember, they've held my very existence against me. The oldest has always seen me as a burden, another kid she had to help take care of. The middle one resents me because she claims I stole our parents from her. When I was born, my parents were busy managing a construction and real estate business, and apparently she was left with a nanny a lot. She blamed me for it, saying it was my fault she had to be alone. On top of that, our family's finances took a hit after my birth. My parents shut down their business and we moved to a smaller house. Somehow this too was pinned on me. According to them, my arrival ruined their lives. For years, they used that as justification to treat me terribly. They bullied me, excluded me, and even got physically rough sometimes. I was the family scapegoat. My parents turned a blind eye to most of it, only stepping in when things got so bad that Child Protective Services became involved after a teacher reported bruises and a neighbor reported constant screaming. Even then, my parents only made half-hearted efforts to intervene. Eventually, my sisters mellowed out. They stopped being openly cruel, but instead of apologizing or trying to rebuild a relationship, they just ignored me. In their minds, that meant they changed, that they were good people now. But to me, it was too little, too late. So I built my own life outside the house. These days, I'm rarely home. I go to school, then church, then youth scouts or extra classes. On weekends, I sign up for camps. Most days, I'm gone from 7 a.m. until 8 or 9 p.m. When I do come home, it's just to grab food, change clothes, or sleep. It's my way of protecting myself from the toxic atmosphere at home. Of course now my family complains. They say I'm never around, and that they miss me. But when I was younger, where was that energy? Where was that love and care? The breaking point came recently. I was packing my bag for a scout camp I had scheduled for next weekend. It happens to overlap with my 18-year-old sister's birthday. The second day of the camp is her actual birthday, and she suddenly demanded that I stay home. She said it wasn't right for me to miss her day. The older one backed her up, insisting I shouldn't go. I got frustrated. For years, these two treated me like garbage. Now, suddenly, I was expected to rearrange my life to celebrate them? I snapped and told them point blank, "You're the reason I spend so much time away from home in the first place." They were stunned into silence at first. Then, predictably, they ran to my mom whining about how mean I was. For once, my parents didn't scold me. In fact, my mom and dad both took my side, telling my sisters that they had no right to demand I stay home after everything. Since then, my sisters have been sulking. They only talk to me to tell me it's my fault they feel isolated from our parents now. They accuse me of being selfish and a prick for choosing a camp over a birthday. Some of my friends think I was harsh. They told me that bringing up the past only makes it harder for my sisters to change. They say if I keep reminding them of how badly they treated me, they'll never grow. But from my perspective, I'm not the one holding on to the past they are. They never apologized. They never took responsibility. They just stopped being cruel and expected me to act like nothing ever happened. Why should I ignore years of pain just because they've decided they want me around now? The truth is, I'm happier away from home. I feel safe when I'm at school, at church, at scouts. I feel like I belong. At home, I still feel like the unwanted child. I don't think it's fair for my sisters to suddenly demand my time when they never cared about me before. So here I am wondering, was I wrong to throw their past treatment of me back in their faces? Should I have kept quiet, even though the truth is that they are the reason I don't want to be home? Or was it fair to finally say out loud what I've been holding in all these years? Am I the asshole? Was I wrong to expose squatters' fake insurance scam after they trashed my late father's house? When my father passed away, I thought the hardest part would be dealing with grief and selling his house to settle the reverse mortgage. I was wrong. The hardest part turned out to be the people who lived there, a family of opportunists who tried to exploit the situation for every penny they could. Let's call them Mr. A and Ms. M. They had been living in my dad's home for a while, and on the very day he was taken to the hospital, they teamed up with a shady contractor friend, Mr. K. Together, they used my dad's debit card, which he had left behind in the house, to charge several $100s to Mr. K's business. Think about that. The man was in the hospital, literally dying, and they took his card to line their pockets. The next day, during one of their many arguments, Mr. A slipped up and mentioned the charge to me. I was furious. I called the bank immediately, explained the situation, and the charge was reversed since my dad had already died when it was made. I even managed to get a bogus invoice from Mr. K showing my dad's forged signature. But that was only the beginning. After my dad died, I needed to sell the house because of the reverse mortgage rules. Mr. A and Ms. M knew this, and they decided to dig in. They refused to leave unless I paid them thousands of dollars in cash for keys. In other words, they tried to hold me hostage. They figured I'd eventually break because I couldn't afford to let the mortgage default. I caved, at least temporarily. I paid them $5,000 to leave. They signed notices agreeing to vacate by a set date. But when that day came, they stayed put. Worse, they started texting me claims that they had a verbal agreement with my dad that they could stay indefinitely. It was nonsense, but they knew the eviction process would take months, and the clock on the mortgage was ticking. Eventually, foreclosure notices began arriving from the bank. Only then did they realize they couldn't stretch the scam forever. They finally left, and I was able to put the house on the market. Just when I thought it was over, the realtor called me the day before closing. An insurance company had reached out about a claim filed on the property. My stomach dropped. I thought the house sale was about to fall apart. I called the insurance adjuster. What I learned left me stunned and oddly delighted. Ms. M and Mr. A had taken out a rental insurance policy in June, after they were supposed to vacate. Then in July, they filed a claim for water damage, using a fake rental agreement with my forged signature, and another fraudulent invoice from Mr. K. I took a deep breath, then calmly explained everything to the adjuster. I told her about the fraudulent debit card charge back in April, the signed termination notice proving they had to leave by June 30th, and the texts where they admitted to not paying rent and trying to extort me. I even had emails from Mr. K referencing earlier forgeries, and photos of the property showing it was trashed but with no water damage at all. The piece de resistance? Their signatures on the termination notice matched the signatures on the fake rental agreement. Mine, of course, did not. The adjuster was floored. She told me I had given her everything she needed to deny the claim. Whether or not they'd pursue fraud charges wasn't something I could control, but I knew their little insurance scheme was dead in the water. The next day, the closing went through. I sold the house, paid off the reverse mortgage, and finally got to put the whole ordeal behind me. I'll never forget the months of stress those squatters caused me, the fear of losing the house to foreclosure, the sleepless nights, the endless back and forth. But the satisfaction of knowing I got the final word, that I exposed their lies and cost them the payout they thought they'd swindle, was priceless. For once, the scammers lost and I walked away free. What should I do if my husband and my friend acted like they wanted each other right in front of me? I'm 35 years old and I've been married to my husband, also 35, for 12 years. We've been together since we were teenagers, 17 years in total. We've been through so much together, building a life, a home, and what I thought was an unshakable bond. But 2 nights ago, something happened that left me shaken to my core. We went out for the birthday of one of my close friends, Jane, who is 36. Jane is married to my husband's childhood best friend. Their marriage has been rocky lately because of his infidelity, and they've been in therapy trying to salvage it. Jane has been struggling emotionally, and I've been trying to be there for her as a friend. That night, we went out with a small group. Everyone was drinking and enjoying karaoke. Eventually, the other friends left and it was just me, my husband, and Jane. That's when things started to get weird. Jane made a joke about needing to put herself in horny jail because she hadn't had sex in a while. Instead of ignoring it, my husband laughed and physically grabbed her by the throat in a joking manner, saying, "Yeah, I'll put you in a box." I was stunned. This wasn't a playful pat on the shoulder. It was physical contact that felt loaded, even if they were laughing. Then, as the night went on, it only escalated. At one point, a random guy at the bar flirted with Jane, even serenading her during karaoke and giving her a silly lap dance. Jane laughed, and my husband laughed too, but instead of focusing on me, he seemed drawn into Jane's energy. Later, Jane grabbed my husband by the hair and shoved him against a wall. He actually moaned and then said, "If you grab me like that again, it'll end with my dick in your throat." He said it while laughing, but the meaning was not lost on me. I froze. I forced out an awkward laugh, pretending it was all a joke, but inside I was burning with humiliation and anger. He even kept asking me if I was okay. Why would he ask that repeatedly unless he knew he was crossing a line? It felt like he was testing how far he could push things without me blowing up. When the bar closed, Jane didn't want to go home because of the problems with her husband. She had stayed over at our place before, so it wasn't unusual for her to come back with us. But once there, it crossed into territory I can't ignore. Jane shoved my husband onto the couch, straddled him, and put her hands around his throat again. He clearly enjoyed it. He kept saying the dynamic was weird but that he liked it. I stood there dumbfounded, as if I wasn't even part of the room. Then Jane, out of nowhere, told me they weren't attracted to each other, they were both sexually attracted to me. That threw me off completely. My husband then chimed in saying things like, "I want to throw you both down and fuck you," and, "Jane, go fuck my wife." At that moment I snapped out of my haze. I told them both that nothing was going to happen. I said even if they were serious, I wasn't going to entertain anything sexual when alcohol was involved. The truth was, even sober, I would never be okay with it, but I used alcohol as an excuse to shut it down without starting a screaming match. The whole night replayed in my head after that. I realized I had been dissociating, laughing things off, pretending it was fine when deep down I was horrified. I couldn't process it in the moment, so I defaulted to silence. The next day, when I confronted my husband sober, he admitted he went too far. He said he felt awful and immediately booked a marriage counseling appointment. He apologized, but I can't stop asking myself, if I hadn't been there, what would have happened? This isn't the first time I felt uneasy about Jane. Earlier this month, she drunkenly put her hand on my husband's chest while laughing. I told him afterward it made me uncomfortable. He apologized then too. But now, after this birthday disaster, I don't think an apology is enough. I feel grimy, ashamed, angry, and heartbroken. This wasn't some random woman, this was my friend. And it wasn't subtle. It was blatant flirting, sexual comments, physical touching, and it all happened right in front of me. I can't stop asking questions. Was it just drunken silliness? Or was it my husband revealing a darker side of himself? Is this going to happen every time he drinks and another woman gives him attention? Why wasn't my dignity worth protecting that night? I also can't stop thinking about how ignored I felt. I was right there, but they acted like I was invisible until it suited them to drag me into their little game. I feel like I don't matter to him in the way I thought I did. Right now, I'm angry enough that I can barely look at him. I'm hurt that someone I trusted with my heart treated me like a spectator in my own marriage. And I'm confused because part of me still loves him and wants to believe it was just a drunken lapse in judgment. But another part of me is terrified that this is who he really is when the mask slips. He says therapy will help. Maybe it will. But what if it doesn't? What if I never get past the image of my husband being pinned to the couch by my friend, moaning in delight, while I stood there like an afterthought? So Reddit, am I overreacting? Or is this the beginning of the end of my marriage? Should I give therapy a chance, or should I see this as a red flag that can't be undone? Today I messed up by getting fired from my job. I'm 20 years old, male, and I live with my parents in London. Life here is expensive, ridiculously expensive, and for months I've been struggling to find part-time work. I sent out application after application, walked into stores with my CV, checked online postings daily. 3 long months of rejection emails, silence, and we'll get back to you. When I finally landed a job, it felt like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders. It wasn't glamorous work, just delivering flyers door to door, but it was a paycheck. For once, I could contribute to my own expenses, maybe save a little, maybe even replace my busted phone without asking my parents for money. The first few days went fine. I was given stacks of flyers and simple instructions. 1 flyer per house, slip it into the letterbox, move on. Easy. But after a week, the monotony started to get to me. Hours of walking, the same motion again and again, streets blending together. I got tired, bored, and this is where my stupidity comes. I started looking for shortcuts. Why not drop 2 or 3 flyers in some houses? I thought, I'll finish faster, no one will notice, and I'll still get paid. At the time it seemed harmless, but of course someone did notice. A homeowner called to complain. Then another. Before I knew it, my supervisor wanted to have a word. The meeting was short and the tone said it all. They didn't scream or curse. They just looked disappointed, like a teacher catching a student cheating on homework. "We hired you to do a job properly," they said. "If you're cutting corners after only a week, how can we trust you?" I left that meeting with a pit in my stomach, knowing the decision was already made. They didn't say the words outright, but I could hear it between the lines. I was going to get a call in the next couple of days telling me I was out. The walk home felt endless. All I could think about was my parents. They'd been so proud when I finally got the job. After years of academic disappointment, bad exam results, failed college entrance attempts, this had been a small win. Now I'd thrown it away over pure laziness. That night, I sat in my room staring at the ceiling, rehearsing conversations in my head. Should I tell them immediately? Should I wait until the call came? Could I spin it somehow, say the job ended because they didn't need me anymore? But deep down I knew lying wouldn't work. The missing paycheck would give me away. I didn't sleep much. The shame was too heavy. I kept replaying the moment I shoved 2 flyers into one letterbox, thinking I was clever, when in reality I was digging my own grave. The next morning my mom noticed I was quiet at breakfast. "Everything okay?" she asked gently. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. By midday the guilt was unbearable. I texted my best friend, confessing what happened. He responded with brutal honesty. "Mate, that was dumb. But it's not the end of the world. Tell your parents before they find out." He was right, of course, but that didn't make it easier. I still haven't told them yet, and the call hasn't come through, but I know it's only a matter of time. I feel like I've let everyone down, me, employers, my parents, and myself. It wasn't about the money as much as it was about pride. For once, I wanted to be the guy who had his act together, who didn't need to ask for help. Now I feel like I'm back at square one. Unemployed, ashamed, and terrified of facing my parents' disappointment. The irony is, I didn't even save that much time by doubling up the flyers. Maybe half an hour at most. Half an hour of laziness in exchange for losing the job I'd worked months to find. So yeah, today I messed up by cutting corners at work and basically firing myself before the boss even had to do it. I just need to get this off my chest. My famous sister is secretly cruel, and nobody knows the truth. Living in the shadow of a famous sibling is harder than I ever expected, especially when the person everyone praises online is nothing like the person I know in real life. My sister is well known now. She has hundreds of thousands of followers across Instagram and YouTube. People gush over her, calling her the most beautiful woman they have ever seen. They admire her looks, her style, her presence. Every time I scroll, I see strangers worshiping her, convinced she is perfect. But I cannot see her the way they do. To me, she is not glamorous. She is mean. She is abusive. She is one of the coldest people I have ever known. And the more popular she gets, the harder it is to deal with the disconnect between her image and her reality. Growing up, she was controlling and cruel. She would threaten me if I argued back. If I disagreed with her even on something small, she would hit me or belittle me until I cried. She dismisses every struggle I have ever had, telling me that she has had it worse, that I should stop complaining, that my feelings do not matter compared to hers. In public, though, she is the exact opposite. She presents herself as funny, kind, relatable, down to earth. She collaborates with creators, makes silly skits, and posts photos that get showered with likes and compliments. People cannot get enough of her. To them, she is an icon. To me, she is the person who made my life miserable. I wish I could block her, cut her off, pretend she does not exist. But it is impossible. Even if I do not follow her, she shows up everywhere in other people's content, in ads, in collaborations that go viral. My social media feeds are filled with her face, her voice, her brand. I cannot escape her. And every time I see those comments calling her beautiful, sweet, amazing, I feel sick. Nobody knows the truth. Nobody knows how vicious she can be behind closed doors. Nobody sees the way she talks down to family, the way she lashes out at the smallest disagreement, the way she makes everyone walk on eggshells around her. Scares me how good she is at hiding it. If I ever told someone what she is really like, I doubt they would believe me. Who would trust my word against a popular influencer? People would probably accuse me of being jealous. But I am not jealous, I am exhausted. I just want peace, a life without her looming over me. Sometimes I wonder how she became this way. Maybe the pressure of chasing fame warped her. Maybe she was always like this and fame just gave her the spotlight. Either way, she thrives on attention, and she will do anything to maintain it. Meanwhile, I am stuck carrying the weight of knowing who she really is. Family gatherings are unbearable. She walks in like a celebrity, everyone praising her success, while I sit quietly, invisible. If I ever try to speak up, she shuts me down with a glare or a sarcastic comment. She dominates the room the same way she dominates the internet. And nobody calls her out because everyone wants to stay on her good side. I hate the version of myself I become around her. I shrink, I hide, I avoid eye contact. I feel like I am 13 again, trapped in her orbit, waiting for her to lash out. Even now, as adults, the power dynamic has not changed. She controls the narrative, and I am left with resentment and silence. It is lonely too. I cannot talk about it with friends because they know who she is online. They see her content, her collaborations, her ads. They think she is funny and talented. If I told them she is abusive, they would look at me like I was crazy. And if word ever got back to her, the backlash would be unbearable. So I carry this secret. My sister is famous, adored by thousands of strangers, but in reality she is cruel and vindictive. Every like, every compliment, every sponsorship she gets feels like a knife twisting deeper because I know it is all built on a lie. I am not writing this because I expect anything to change. I know she will keep growing her following, keep presenting herself as perfect, keep fooling people. I am writing it because I needed to release the pressure of holding it all inside. I am tired of pretending she is someone worth admiring. I am tired of choking down my anger and my fear just to keep the peace. What I want most is distance. I want to live quietly, far from her spotlight, in a place where I do not have to see her face every time I open an app. I want freedom from the constant reminder that the world loves her, even though she has been nothing but cruel to me. Maybe someday I will be able to cut ties completely. Maybe someday I will find the courage to block her and never look back. But for now, I am stuck with the weight of her fame and the reality of her cruelty. This is my truth. My sister is famous, but the person the world adores is not the real her, and that secret is eating me alive. What happens when I follow the rules exactly and start scheduling medical appointments for the wrong office? Several years ago, my friend Mark started a small computer repair and software business out of his home. This was back in the days before remote work was common and before smartphones were everywhere. Landlines were still the main way businesses communicated. Mark and his wife had lived in their house for about a decade, and their phone number was well established in the community. He worked evenings from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., because that's when his customers were available to drop off and pick up their computers. His system was simple. People could leave their broken machines on his back porch after work, and he'd fix them overnight so they could pick them up on their way to work the next morning. It was a smart little business model and it was working well. Then a new doctor moved into town, and by pure bad luck, the doctor's brand new office phone number was almost identical to Mark's. The only difference was a single digit at the end. Mark's number ended with a 3, while the doctor's ended with an 8. The calls started trickling in almost immediately. At first, it was a mild inconvenience. Someone would misdial, ask for the doctor's office, and Mark would politely redirect them. Sorry, you've got the wrong number. The doctor's office ends in an 8, not a 3. But as the medical practice grew, so did the calls. Hospitals referred patients there. Parents scrambled to get their kids' physicals. People called in the middle of the night for emergencies. Soon, Mark's phone rang at all hours 24/7. His business calls got lost among the noise, and he and his wife couldn't even eat dinner or sleep without constant interruptions. One night, after his daughters had gone out on dates, Mark unplugged the phone just so his family could rest. But that meant he missed calls from actual customers too. It was becoming unbearable. So Mark did the reasonable thing. He called the doctor's office directly. Hi, this is Mark. My number is 1 digit away from yours, and I've been getting your calls non-stop. Would you consider changing your number? I've had mine for over a decade, and I'm trying to run a business here. The doctor was dismissive, even arrogant. I'm not changing my number. I've already paid for advertising, business cards, signage, you name it. It would be too expensive. The calls will slow down eventually. Just deal with it. Mark tried again. But people are calling at all hours. My family can't sleep. I can't run my business. Not my problem, the doctor interrupted. Good luck to you. Mark hung up fuming. Then he smiled. All right, he muttered. If you want me to deal with it, I'll deal with it. The very next time the phone rang, Mark answered cheerfully. Doctor's office. How can I help you? The caller wanted an appointment for the sniffles. Absolutely, come right in today, Mark said. Another caller complained about coughing when smoking. Yep, better get that checked. We'll see you right after lunch. A worried mom called about school physicals for her 5 kids. Perfect. We've got an opening in an hour. Bring them all in together. We'll handle it. Mark started scheduling appointments left and right. He didn't care about times, didn't care about overlaps. If someone called, they got an appointment sometimes the same day, sometimes stacked on top of each other. He was polite, professional, and extremely convincing. People loved the personal attention. They thanked him for squeezing them in so quickly. Mark would hang up the phone and laugh. The real kicker came one Friday afternoon. Mark scheduled 6 different routine checkups all for 4:30 p.m. at the same time. By Monday morning, chaos erupted at the doctor's office. Patients flooded in, demanding their promised appointments. The staff scrambled to explain that no such appointments existed. The doctor was furious, overwhelmed, and completely blindsided. And sure enough, at 8 a.m. sharp, Mark's phone rang. It was the doctor himself. Mark, you've got to stop this, the doctor begged. You're ruining my schedule. Patients are furious. Mark's voice was calm, almost cheerful. Well, doc, I told you this was a problem. You said it wasn't your responsibility. I've been doing my best to deal with it, just like you told me. There was a long pause. Then defeated, the doctor said. Fine, I'll change the number. By the end of that week, the medical practice had a brand new phone line. The calls to Mark's house stopped overnight. His family got their peace back, his business ran smoothly again, and the doctor had learned a very expensive lesson about arrogance. All it had cost Mark was a few mischievous phone calls and a little malicious compliance. Should I stay friendly at work if my older coworker confessed feelings and now acts cold? I am 25 years old, and I have been working at my current job for almost 2 years. For the most part, I like it. I get along with my team, I enjoy the work, and until recently I thought I had a comfortable relationship with my colleagues. But a situation with one coworker has turned everything upside down. He is older, around 50, married with children. When I first started, we bonded over small things. Music, hobbies, the kind of conversations you have in the break room that make the day go by faster. He often called me an old soul, saying he related to me more than people my age. I thought it was harmless. To me, it felt like nothing more than a friendly connection with someone I worked with. I was wrong. Over the past few months, his behavior shifted. He began dropping comments that felt more personal, more loaded. I brushed them off, not wanting to assume anything. But then it happened. Ed confessed his feelings. I froze. I was polite but firm. I told him I was in a long-term relationship, which he already knew. I explained I wasn't interested in anything beyond friendship. I thought that would be enough. I thought he would understand and we could move on. Instead, it was like a switch flipped. He became cold, distant, and awkward. He barely speaks to me now. When he does, it is clipped and uncomfortable. The easy conversations we used to have are gone. The friendly vibe is gone. Now every interaction feels tense, and the workplace feels heavier because of it. Part of me feels guilty. I wonder if I led him on by being too friendly. I replay our conversations, asking myself if I missed signs, if I should have shut it down sooner. I even apologized for not noticing sooner and clarified that I valued the professional relationship we had. But nothing I say seems to fix it. Another part of me feels angry. Why should I be the one carrying guilt? I never gave him reason to believe I was interested. I never crossed boundaries. I simply treated him like a colleague. And yet, when he didn't get the answer he wanted, he punished me by shutting down. What hurts the most is that I actually enjoyed his friendship. I thought he was someone I could talk to, someone who made work a little more pleasant. I wasn't faking it. I wasn't using him. But apparently, that friendship only mattered to him if it came with the possibility of romance. Now I am left with this awkward situation. Every day, I walk into work and feel the tension. It is like I did something wrong when really I was just setting a boundary. I am torn about what to do. Part of me wants to reach out again to try and salvage some version of the connection we had. I do not want to be enemies, and I hate the thought of him resenting me. But another part of me knows that might not be possible. Maybe the only reason he was friendly in the first place was because he hoped for more. Maybe without that, there was never going to be a genuine friendship. My friends tell me to let it go. They say he is an adult, and if he cannot handle rejection with maturity, that is his problem, not mine. They remind me that I already did my part by being clear and respectful. But I cannot help feeling unsettled. Like the workplace I used to enjoy has turned into a minefield of awkwardness. So I am stuck. Do I make one more effort to smooth things over, knowing it might open the door to more uncomfortable conversations? Or do I accept the awkwardness and focus on my job, letting time do the healing? What I know for sure is this: I should not feel guilty for setting boundaries. I should not feel like the bad guy for saying no. And yet, that is exactly how this situation has left me second-guessing myself for doing the right thing. Am I overreacting for thinking my new housemate's 3 a.m. routine is unbearable? I live in a shared house with 3 other people. We've always gotten along well. Before anyone moves in, we sit down together, ask questions about lifestyle, cleaning, and schedules, and make sure we're compatible. We're all morning people in the sense that we like to be up around 6 or 7, in bed by 10, and generally live a quiet, respectful routine. About 6 weeks ago, a new housemate moved in. Let's call her Clara. During the screening process, we asked her about her daily schedule. She smiled and said, "I'm a morning person too." That sounded perfect. We thought she meant the same thing we did: early riser, goes to bed early, doesn't party late into the night. None of us had any idea what her version of morning person meant. We found out quickly. For Clara, morning starts at 3 o'clock in the morning, every single day. The first night, I woke up to the sound of doors opening, lights flicking on, and footsteps up and down the hallway. First, I thought maybe she had an early flight. But the next night, it happened again. And the night after that. Soon it became clear. This wasn't an exception. This was her routine. Clara gets up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym. She bangs around in the kitchen preparing her pre-workout shake, slamming cabinets, blending smoothies, dropping weights of some kind. She showers, blow-dries her hair, and stomps around the house. By 3:30, she's out the door with her golden retriever, who barks excitedly every single time. Around 4:45 a.m. she returns. That's when the real chaos begins. The dog bounds through the house, chasing squeaky toys and barking with joy. Clara encourages him, laughing loudly, throwing toys down the hallway. By 5 a.m., she takes him for another walk, returning half an hour later to cook a full breakfast. Frying pans clatter, eggs sizzle, and YouTube videos blast from her phone. Her morning routine goes on until about 6 a.m., when she finally sits down to eat. By the time she leaves for work around 7:30, the rest of us are already exhausted. We tried small adjustments on our own. One housemate bought sound panels for his door. Another invested in a white noise machine. I even tried wearing earplugs. Nothing works. The noise is too consistent and too loud. One of my housemates actually wakes up at 1 a.m. just to put on noise-canceling headphones, because if she waits until Clara wakes up, the battery won't last through the whole routine. We are all running on fumes. We brought it up gently at first. We said things like, "Hey, your mornings are a bit noisy. Could you maybe keep it down?" Clara just laughed and said, "Wow, this house must have really thin walls." Then she brushed it off, saying, "I'm just a morning person. You'll get used to it." But we haven't gotten used to it. We're exhausted. Sleep deprivation is affecting our work, our studies, our health. One housemate has started staying at her boyfriend's place just to get a decent night's sleep. Another is constantly late to work because she can't drag herself out of bed after being woken up at 3 a.m. We had a house meeting last week. We explained, as calmly as possible, that her routine was disruptive. We asked her to make some adjustments, maybe prep her breakfast the night before. Maybe use headphones for her videos. Maybe take the dog outside instead of letting him run laps through the house. Clara got defensive. She said, "This is just who I am. I've always been a morning person. You can't expect me to change my lifestyle just because you all sleep in." Sleep in. That's how she described waking up at 6 or 7 a.m. To her, that's late. To us, it's normal. Now I'm stuck wondering what to do. Part of me feels guilty for being so frustrated. After all, she's not throwing parties, she's not blasting music at midnight. Technically, she's not breaking quiet hours, because she's awake before anyone else. But the reality is, her schedule is completely incompatible with ours. I've started to dread nights. I crawl into bed at 10, knowing that in just 5 hours I'll be jolted awake by Clara's blender, her dog's squeaky toys, or her stomping footsteps. I've developed headaches, my patience is wearing thin, and I feel like a zombie at work. The house, which used to feel peaceful, now feels like a ticking time bomb. Some of my friends outside the house tell me I'm overreacting. They say, she's just living her life. Everyone has different schedules. Others say it's fair to be upset, that 3 a.m. isn't morning, it's the middle of the night. I don't know what to do. Do we sit her down again and demand changes? Do we set house rules about acceptable noise hours? Do we ask her to leave if she can't compromise? That feels extreme, but so does living like this indefinitely. So here I am, asking strangers. Am I overreacting for thinking Clara's 3 a.m. routine is unbearable? Or is it fair to say that morning person should not mean dragging the entire house into her schedule? Am I the asshole for recording my daughter crying and sending it to her father to show the damage he is causing? I am a 31-year-old woman, and this past month has been one of the hardest of my life. I recently found out that my partner of 9 years, the father of my 2 daughters who are 3 and 6 years old, has been cheating on me with a coworker. Ever since I confronted him, everything has fallen apart. We are no longer together in any real sense. He spends most of his time at his new girlfriend's house, and when he does come by, he makes it clear he hates me. He calls me names, blames me for everything, and leaves me to handle the fallout on my own. I am the one at home all day with the girls, trying to keep them safe and emotionally stable while my own life crumbles. The worst part is how much our eldest daughter has been struggling. She misses her father terribly, and she does not understand why he is gone. She has told me more than once, "Daddy is mad at me and that is why he does not come home." Hearing that breaks me. I reassure her constantly that none of this is her fault, that it is between me and him, but the sadness in her voice is unbearable. I try hard to speak kindly about him in front of the kids. I am not perfect, and I will admit there have been moments where I slipped and let my bitterness show. But 98% of the time, I do my best to protect them from my anger. I tell them he loves them, even when he is absent. I tell them the problems are between us, not them. When I bring this up to him, he refuses to believe me. He calls me a liar, says I am inventing stories, and insists that the kids are fine. He tells me I am putting ideas into their heads. Every time I try to explain that they are hurting, he shuts me down with insults and cruelty. Last night was another typical night of him storming out. He had been at his girlfriend's house. I asked him to spend some time here and help with the kids, and he got angry. Hours later, our oldest daughter had a breakdown. She was crying, saying Dad hates me. Dad never wants to be here. I hugged her, comforted her, and told her again that it was not her fault. But inside, I felt this desperate need to prove to him what his absence is doing to our children. So while I was consoling her, I quietly pressed record on my phone. I captured about 20 seconds of her crying and saying how hurt she was that he spends all his time at his friend's house, but never comes home. I did not do it to shame her, and I deleted it afterward. I only did it because I wanted him to finally understand the real impact of his choices. I sent the clip to him. The response was immediate and brutal. He called me every name imaginable. A crazy evil witch, sadistic, manipulative. He said I was using our child to get back at him. He said this was exactly why he does not want to be around Met had I poisoned the kids against him. He accused me of putting those words in her mouth, of turning her against him. I do not see it that way. I see a little girl who misses her father and thinks she is to blame. I see myself trying to reassure her, trying to comfort her while also showing him the truth he keeps denying. He cheated, he left, and now he refuses to face the consequences. I admit maybe recording her was not the best choice. She was vulnerable, and maybe I should have just kept comforting her instead of worrying about proving a point to him. I feel guilty about that. But I also know I never shared the recording with anyone else. I never posted it. I deleted it almost immediately after sending it because I did not want to watch it again. Right now, I am on 4 different medications just to keep from falling apart completely. I have called crisis hotlines twice this month. I am moving to a new house with the girls in just a few weeks, and I am trying to hold it together until then. But it feels like he gets to run off to his new girlfriend's house, live his new life, and pretend none of this matters, while I am the one left to pick up the pieces with 2 devastated children. So I keep asking myself, was I wrong? Was I out of line to record my daughter crying and send it to him? Or was I justified in trying to show him the truth, even if it meant capturing a painful moment? I do not believe I am evil. I do not believe I am sadistic. I believe I am a mother trying desperately to make her children's father see the pain he is causing. But maybe I crossed the line by involving my daughter that way. So I need an outside perspective. Am I the asshole for recording my daughter's breakdown and sending it to her father? Or was I simply trying to hold him accountable for the damage he refuses to acknowledge? Am I the asshole for skipping my sister's wedding because she told me to take off my engagement ring? I'm a 25-year-old man, and a few weeks ago I got engaged to my partner of 4 years. He's 27 and honestly, he's not just my fiancé's my best friend, my safe place, the person who has shown me a kind of love I never thought I'd have. My backstory makes this even more meaningful. From ages 17 to 19, I was trapped in an abusive relationship. It left scars, emotional and physical, and also damaged my relationship with my family. Back then, I felt like they didn't push hard enough to protect me or pull me out of that situation. It has taken years of therapy to even begin to work through the resentment. So when I met my fiancé, everything changed. For the first time since childhood, I felt safe. I felt truly seen. He's the one who helped me rebuild trust in people. When he proposed, it was one of the happiest days of my life. We didn't make a big announcement. No fancy reveal, no social media post. We just quietly told a few close friends. My family didn't know yet. Fast forward to my sister's wedding. Months ago, my fiancé and I RSVP'd yes because I didn't want to burn bridges completely. I'm low contact with my family, but I still wanted to try. The night before the wedding, there was a rehearsal dinner. I showed up wearing my engagement ring. Nothing flashy, just a simple band, but it meant everything to me. My mom noticed and immediately got emotional. She actually cried and told me how happy she was for us. For the first time in years, I felt like she was truly acknowledging what I'd been through. She said, "I know how close I came to losing you back then, and seeing you happy now means the world." It was one of the most healing moments I've ever had with her. But then my sister noticed. Later that night, she pulled me aside. Her voice was sharp, and her expression was cold. She said, "Can you take off your engagement ring tomorrow? You kind of stole my spotlight tonight." First, I thought she was joking, but she was dead serious. She said she didn't want guests at her wedding being distracted or asking questions about my engagement. It was her day, and she demanded that all eyes be on her. I was stunned. I said, "No, I'm not taking off my ring. It's not some accessory. It's my engagement ring." We went back and forth for several minutes. She kept saying, "It's just one day. Don't be selfish. Don't make my wedding about you." I kept saying, "I'm not. I didn't even announce anything. People noticed on their own." Finally, I told her, "I'm not comfortable hiding something that means so much to me. If you can't handle me wearing my engagement ring at your wedding, then maybe I shouldn't be there." And that's exactly what happened. The next morning, I stayed home. The wedding went on without me. I thought maybe my absence would be barely noticed. But a few days later, I got a long text from my sister. She said I had ruined her wedding because my refusal upset our mom, and my absence was all anyone could talk about. She said I was selfish and petty, and she accused me of intentionally sabotaging her big day. But from my perspective, all I did was set a boundary. I didn't announce my engagement. I didn't try to steal the spotlight. I simply wore the ring that symbolizes my future, my safety, my happiness. I refused to erase that just to appease her insecurity. And honestly, I don't regret it. To me, her demand wasn't just about a ring. It was about control. It was about her need to be the center of attention, no matter the cost. And I've spent too much of my life letting other people control me. Not anymore. Now I keep asking myself, was I wrong to draw the line here? Should I have just sucked it up, taken off the ring, and kept the peace for one day? Or was I right to stand firm, even if it meant missing her wedding? Am I the asshole? Was I wrong to win over a homophobic dad's whole family and then bake him cookies? Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't loud or cruel. Sometimes it's as simple as a smile, a kind word, or a perfectly timed batch of cookies. My story is about dealing with the father of one of my best friends, a man who had every prejudice you could imagine, and who eventually learned he couldn't control the world, no matter how hard he tried. Back when I was in middle and high school, I was close friends with a girl whose dad we'll call Patrick. Patrick was, to put it kindly, a character. To put it honestly, he was a walking checklist of stereotypes about old Southern men. Racist, sexist, homophobic, and more. Somehow, though, I slipped under his radar for years. I was quiet, polite, and didn't fit the obvious picture of queerness he imagined. For a long time, Patrick tolerated me because he thought I was a good influence on his daughter. He liked that I was studious, well-mannered, and what he considered a safe friend. That unspoken tolerance lasted until my junior year, when I cut my hair short. Suddenly, Patrick couldn't ignore that I was queer. He never said anything to me directly, he wasn't confrontational like that. Instead, he ranted behind my back. He pressured his daughter to stop being friends with me, insisting I was going to confuse her or turn her gay. He even suggested that me bringing her lunch sometimes was just a ploy to get into her pants. For the record, I'm aromantic and asexual. The only thing I was ever interested in was friendship. My friend would vent to me about his tirades, and each time my annoyance grew. Patrick had a problem with me, fine, but he should have brought it to me instead of unloading on his daughter. Still, I knew I couldn't be aggressive. I'm not confrontational by nature, and I didn't want to give him more ammunition. So instead, I took a different approach. I started winning over his family, his oldest son, I showed patience and kindness when he struggled. His middle son? I played Dungeons and Dragons with him. His youngest? I matched his jokes and banter. Before long, all 3 sons were firmly in my corner. Patrick's wife? I was polite, helpful, and respectful every time I came over. Soon, she genuinely liked me. By the time senior year rolled around, the whole family except Patrick himself thought of me as a positive influence. He could rant all he wanted, but no one was going to turn against me. His campaign failed before it even started. But I wasn't done. I decided to go one step further. Patrick's birthday happened to fall during the last semester of high school. He had a particular fondness for a specific type of chocolate chip cookie, but the store that sold them was nearly an hour away. Conveniently, I was taking culinary classes at the time, and I happened to know a copycat recipe. Even better, my teacher let us use the school's kitchen for projects during the final week. So I baked and baked. I made him a massive batch of 48 big, chewy, perfect chocolate chip cookies. When I presented them, his family was thrilled and Patrick was stunned. Here was the person he'd been ranting about, the one he painted as a terrible influence, handing him his favorite treat on his birthday. He had no response. What could he say? That I was corrupting his daughter with baked goods? That cookies were part of some master queer agenda? It was the ultimate checkmate. From what my friend told me later, things shifted after that. The next time Patrick tried to badmouth me, his wife snapped at him. "Really?" she said. "You're complaining about the kid who bakes you cookies and helps our sons? Do you hear yourself?" After that, his rants grew quieter, less frequent. Eventually, they stopped altogether. I never had to yell. I never had to argue. I just had to be myself, show kindness to his family, and let him hang himself with his own words. The cookies were just the cherry on top, or maybe the chocolate chips in the dough. Now, years later, I'm still close with my friend, and her family still remembers me fondly. Patrick and I are polite when we cross paths. He may not have changed his worldview, but he learned something important. His prejudice couldn't control the people around him. And honestly, revenge never tasted so sweet. What should I do if my boyfriend invited his parents to move in without asking me? I'm 28 and my boyfriend is 30. We've been together for 4 years, living together for almost 2. And last year we bought a house together. Before buying, we had long talks about boundaries, financial planning, and how important it was that this space belonged to both of us. I thought we were on the same page. I thought this was our home, but apparently I was wrong. A week ago, my boyfriend casually mentioned that his parents might stay with us for a while. I assumed he meant a short visit, maybe a week, 2 at most. His parents live out of state, and they've been struggling financially, so it made sense they might need temporary help. I told him I was fine with that. But then yesterday my mother-in-law called me. That's how I found out it wasn't just a visit. My boyfriend had told his parents they could move in with us permanently. They had already sold their home. They were arriving next weekend with a moving truck. I was blindsided. He never discussed this with me, never asked if I was okay with it, never even hinted that it was more than a short stay. He made a life-altering decision for both of us without a single conversation. When I confronted him, he brushed me off like I was overreacting. He said, "They're my parents, of course they have a place here." When I tried to explain that a permanent arrangement was completely different from a temporary visit, he accused me of being cold, ungrateful, and even hating his family. For the record, I don't hate them. His parents are fine in small doses, but they're extremely traditional and openly critical of me. His mom has told me multiple times that I'm not wife material, because I won't quit my career to stay home. She's made comments about how she'd love to help raise the kids, even though we don't want children right now. His dad believes women belong in the kitchen, and has openly said so at family dinners. I've always tolerated them for the sake of peace, but the thought of living with them indefinitely, it makes my skin crawl. This isn't what I signed up for. I told my boyfriend this wasn't fair. That buying a house together was supposed to be about building our life, not turning it into his parents' retirement plan. He snapped back that I was being selfish, that they needed us, and that family comes first. But what about our family? What about the boundaries we agreed on before buying this house? What about the promise that this would be our safe space? I feel betrayed, not just because of the decision itself, but because of the secrecy. He knew I wouldn't agree, so he went behind my back. And now he's acting like I'm the problem for daring to be upset. Since the confrontation, I've barely spoken to him. I've been lying awake at night wondering if this is who he really is, someone who will bulldoze me whenever his parents are involved. If he couldn't respect me on this, what happens when bigger decisions come up? Kids, finances, careers. I don't want to live in a house where I feel like a guest in my own home. I don't want to spend my 30s tiptoeing around in-laws who criticize me. And I don't want a partner who thinks it's okay to erase me from decisions that directly affect my life. Part of me wonders if this is the end. We aren't married yet. Maybe this is the red flag I shouldn't ignore. Maybe this is my sign to get out before things go even further. But another part of me still loves him. We've built years together. We've invested in this home together. Walking away feels like ripping out a piece of my own heart. I've thought about trying to negotiate setting strict boundaries, saying his parents can only stay for a set amount of time. But honestly, I don't think he'll respect those rules. If he didn't respect me enough to talk to me first, why would he respect me enough to enforce limits later? My friends are all telling me to lawyer up and protect my share of the house. They say if he can make a decision this big without me, he'll do it again. My gut tells me they're right. I haven't decided yet, but one thing is clear. I can't stay silent. This is my home too. My life too. My future too. So Reddit, what should I do? Should I stand my ground and risk the relationship? Or should I walk away now before I lose myself completely? Today I messed up by drinking spider coffee. This just happened recently, and honestly I still feel my skin crawl every time I think about it. Out of all the ways I imagine messing up, I never thought it would involve my morning coffee turning into something out of a horror story. I'm a big coffee person. Like seriously big. I meal prep every Sunday, and that always includes brewing a week's worth of cold brew. I have one of those fancy machines that spins the grounds around and makes a pot in about half an hour. It's not complicated, but it has a lot of parts. The pot itself, the filter with the lid, the spinning basket, the inner chamber. It's kind of a hassle to clean, so I usually let it sit for a day or two before I get around to it. Lazy, I know. Last Sunday was no different. I made 2 full pots, stored them in the fridge, and figured I'd clean the machine later. Monday morning rolled around, and I poured myself a tall glass of cold brew. It tasted amazing, smooth, rich, almost sweeter than usual. I remember actually thinking, wow, this is one of the best batches I've made. I even bragged to my partner about it. Tuesday, same thing. Another glass, again delicious. I was feeling smug, convinced I'd finally perfected my ratio of beans to water. Then came cleaning day. I finally mustered the energy to take the machine apart. I dumped the used grounds, rinsed the spinning basket, and loaded the smaller parts into the dishwasher. When I got to the pot, I popped open the interior filter lid and turned it upside down to shake it out. That's when it happened. Plop. Something heavy and wet hit the dishwasher door. I looked down, and there it was. A very soggy, very dead spider. Its legs were splayed out like some kind of nightmarish starfish, covered in damp coffee grounds. For a second, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Then it hit me. I had been drinking spider-infused coffee for the past 2 days. My stomach turned instantly. My hands shook. I backed away from the counter like the spider was going to crawl after me despite being clearly, undeniably dead. I gagged, then slapped a hand over my mouth. I wanted to scream, but instead I just stood there whispering to myself, no, 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 no. Please tell me I didn't, but I had. There was no escaping it. That extra smooth flavor I'd been praising? Yeah, apparently arachnid essence was the secret ingredient. I felt so betrayed by my own taste buds. How had I not noticed? How had I thought it was better than usual? Did the spider crawl in before brewing? After? How long had it been in there soaking, marinating? I texted my roommate in a panic. Bro, spider. In the coffee maker. Been drinking it for 2 days. Send help. His response. A bunch of crying laughing emojis followed by, protein dude. Not helpful. For the rest of the day I couldn't shake the image. Every time I sipped water, I swore I tasted something earthy, like ghost spider flavor haunting my tongue. I brushed my teeth 3 times. I chewed gum non-stop. Nothing helped. When I told my partner later, she nearly choked laughing. You said it tasted better? Are you telling me you prefer spider brew? She now refuses to let me live it down. Every time she sees me pour coffee, she asks, extra legs with that? I've since sanitized every inch of that machine with boiling water and bleach, but I don't know if I'll ever look at it the same way again. I'm haunted by the thought that somewhere in the coffee world, there's probably some hipster cafe that would market this as artisanal spider-infused brew and charge $20 a cup. And here I was drinking it for free. The absolute worst part? I can't deny it, those 2 days I genuinely thought my coffee tasted incredible. Smooth, rich, almost nutty. Now I'll never know if that was just coincidence or if, horrifyingly, the spider really did add something. So yeah, today I messed up by discovering I've been drinking spider coffee. I just need to get this off my chest. My brother's friend stole from work just to feel included, and it broke my heart. This story is not about me directly, but about someone I have known almost my entire life. My younger brother is 33, and ever since kindergarten, he has had the same group of friends. They are like family at this point. I have seen them grow from little boys to men in their 30s. Among them, there is one who has always stood out, not because he wanted to, but because life seemed to stack the deck against him. I will call him Lenny. Lenny grew up in a household where he never really received the attention or support a child needs. His younger brother was born with a severe disability, and from then on, his parents focused all their energy on that child. Lenny was not physically abused, but he was neglected, ignored, left to fend for himself emotionally. I think that kind of absence leaves scars just as deep as outright cruelty. He struggled academically, dropped out of high school, and has never been able to hold down a stable, well-paying job. Despite that, I always liked Lenny. He has a good heart. He may not be the brightest, but he is kind and he genuinely values the friendships he has. I even invited him to my wedding, and I had to chase him down to stop him from buying a gift because I knew he could not afford it. I just wanted him to enjoy the day, to feel included without added stress. Unfortunately, his home life only got worse as he grew older. He still lives with his parents not because he wants to, but because he cannot afford to move out. And instead of offering him support, his parents berate him daily. I once heard his mother send him a voice message that was nothing but insults, calling him a failure, useless, worthless. If they were not abusive before, they certainly are now. Earlier this year, things seemed to take a positive turn. Lenny finally got a job in a small office, working as part of the accounting staff. It was not glamorous, and the pay was only around €800 a month, half of which his parents demanded for rent. But it was a start. He had a contract through December, and there was a chance for renewal. For once, it felt like he might be on a path to something stable. Then came the disaster. One of my brother's friends got engaged, and as tradition goes, he organized a bachelor party abroad. It was a destination trip, and everyone was excited to go. Everyone, including Lenny. But Lenny did not have the money. Instead of asking for help, instead of admitting he could not afford it, he did something that shattered me. He stole from his workplace. To pay for the trip, he dipped into the payroll funds, taking money that was meant for other workers. Of course, he was caught. The only reason he is not facing jail is because his boss showed mercy. They deducted the stolen amount from his paycheck, roughly €400 each month until it is repaid. But his contract will not be renewed. By December, he will be unemployed again. When my brother confronted him, Lenny broke down sobbing. He said he was tired of always being the one left behind. His friends could go on trips, enjoy vacations, make memories, and he was always the odd one out, broke and embarrassed. He just wanted for once to be part of the group without feeling like a burden. That desperation led him to throw away the best opportunity he had ever gotten. I know what most people would say. He did something wrong. He stole. He deserves the consequences. And I agree. Actions have consequences, and he is lucky his boss did not press charges. But knowing all that does not make it any easier to watch. Because I cannot stop thinking, why didn't he just ask? His friends would have helped. I would have helped. The trip was not so expensive that a group of people could not have chipped in to cover him. Instead, he chose the path that guaranteed humiliation and destroyed the one stable thing he had. I cried when I found out. I cried for the boy who never got love from his parents. I cried for the man who just wanted to belong. I cried because the world sees him as a thief now, when in truth he is just someone starved for acceptance. It makes me furious at his parents. If they had nurtured him, encouraged him, taught him how to handle challenges, maybe he would have had the confidence to ask for help instead of stealing. Maybe he would have a career, a home of his own, a sense of self-worth. Instead, he is a 30-something man still stuck in the same cycle of neglect and failure, with his future slipping away again. I do not excuse what he did. It was wrong and he deserves the fallout. But I cannot hate him for it. I just feel overwhelming sadness, because I know deep down he only did it to feel like he mattered. I do not know what will happen to him now. Once December comes and his job ends, he will be back to square one, no income, no support, no stability. I fear he will spiral further. But a small part of me hopes that maybe somehow this will be the wake-up call he needs. That he will learn to reach out instead of sabotaging himself. That his friends who still care about him will find a way to help him without enabling his mistakes. For now, all I can do is sit with the heartbreak. Because I have known Lenny since he was a child. And I wish his life had turned out differently. I wish the world saw the good in him the way I do. I wish he had been brave enough to ask for help, instead of making the choice that cost him everything.